Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and one more review for, the Star Trek review marathon. The last one, for this weekend, and, this is fully the last one, for the Star Trek review marathon. And I think I saved the best for last. Okay, the last Star Trek documentary I reviewed, which was last night, which of course was For the Love of Spock. So that was, I saved that, the best for, the second to last, you know what I mean. And I think, for this one, I think I saved the best for last. This Star Trek documentary, which being Trek Nation. Yep, because this is all about, well, of course, the life of Gene Rottenbury. Well, specifically, of course, with Rod Rottenbury, Gene Rottenbury's son, learning so much about his father and asking the people, why do they like Star Trek so much, stuff like that. And it's a pretty good documentary. I love this one, because the story of Gene Rottenbury and the, father and son, Rod Rottenbury, and, Majel Barrett, who is in this. Like, this was one of her very last appearances in something. Like, the documentary, as I recall, this, according to the documentary itself, and what Rod Rottenbury was saying, that this documentary was being filmed for a couple of years, up until 2010, when it officially came out. So, so Rod interviewing his mother, Majel, was, I want to say it was filmed probably just, maybe a year or so before she passed away. Even, like, say, George Lucas, he's in this too, and Rod Rottenbury paid a visit to George Lucas, which I'll get into just a little bit later, in a couple minutes. But, Rod Rottenbury just going to conventions and, asking, I guess, the fans, and even, like, say, interviewing some of the actors who knew Gene Rottenbury, like, you have, of course, Jonathan Frakes, you have Patrick Stewart, Seth MacFarlane, he makes an appearance, Ronald D. Moore, Larry, Nemec, I think I'm saying the last name wrong, but, and Michelle Nichols making an appearance, Marina Sirtis, Nana Visitor, if I said that her last name right, the Bajoran in Deep Space Nine, Will Wheaton, and Rob Zombie. I almost forgot that Rob Zombie was in this. But yeah, and Stan Lee, Excelsior, like, he makes an appearance too, talking to Rod about, his dad, Gene. Even Rick Berman, who makes an appearance as well. And even, like, say, when even, like, Rod Rottenbury was talking at the beginning of the documentary, like, we see some old footage, home video of, like, say, when Rod was born, and apparently, like, his parents, they placed him on top of the model of the Enterprise. And also, Rod Rottenbury, because when he was, in his teenage years and 20s, like, he just went off and did his own thing and such, and even up to when, it's mentioned a little bit in the beginning, and then when we come to it later on, the passing of Gene. And even, like, say, when it's mentioned, when Star Trek came back on the small screen with, of course, The Next Generation, and, the clash between Gene Roddenberry and executives, and as we know very well in Chaos on the Bridge, which is another Star Trek documentary that I reviewed. Okay, so let's come up to, like, say, George Lucas. Well, because, for one thing, Rod was a huge Star Wars fan. And and according to Rod, he had Star Wars birthday cakes, he went to see the movie many times, and even Gene Roddenberry, there was an interview of Gene, where he said that he did like Star Wars, and mentioning something, it was the king that, I can't remember how Gene put it, but, so that's nice, and you know what, well, there's even that infamous photo where George Lucas and Gene, they're kind of like shaking hands, I guess, and they're at some convention, and it seemed like they were friends, and, you know, well, both of them, they did join forces, like, you know, well, here's the thing. Star Wars helped bring Star Trek back, because, well, at that point, like, sci-fi, there wasn't that much for sci-fi in the 1970s, but, you know, with George Lucas, he managed to make sci-fi great again with Star Wars, and that got Paramount into really, like, bringing Star Trek back by making the motion picture. Well, even Paramount, before Star Wars happened, like, Paramount had been trying to bring back Star Trek in many ways possible, but when Star Wars happened, that's when they really got crack at it 2 years later with Star Trek the Motion Picture. And, of course, hey, Star Wars fully gave birth to Industrial Lights and Magic. Although they didn't do the special effects for the motion picture, they would go on to do the special effects for the upcoming Star Trek films, from the Genesis trilogy, 2, 3, and 4, and a couple of the Next Generation films. And obviously, as well, for the Kelvin Timeline films. And so when, in the documentary, Rod Rottenbury paid a visit to George at Lucasfilm, well, Skywalker Ranch, I should say. And actually, this was cool. Rod gave George a little gift, which was an original series phaser. And, you know, George even said that if Rod gave that to him early, he would have had one piece of it, you know, that, well, like, there's one piece of the original series phaser where you can kind of attach it, you know, it can be attached. A part of it can be unattached, and he said to Rod that he would have had that piece as something that R2 would have used, you know, because in Revenge of the Sith, when Obi-Wan tossed R2 a communicator, you know, take this and wait for orders, and it was kind of loud, you know, come in R2, so anyways. And so Rod interviewing Gene and, well, I should say George. So Rod interviewing and talking with George, and, you know, and George, according to George, he went to some Star Trek conventions before he did Star Wars. And, according to George, like, how he was doing, what he was going for with Star Wars was very different with Star Trek. He was doing Star Wars like an opera and such. That's what George said, so, you know. Like Star Trek was very science fiction, you know, while Star Wars was space fantasy. So, yeah. And, yeah, even, like, they mentioned this, like, well, even Rod brought this up to George, what he thinks about the whole debate of, like, the Enterprise versus the Millennium Falcon and such, and George, like, stated that he stays away from those. Oh, man. I mean, some people who would do that kind of stuff, like, come on, give it a break. I'm sure it could be funny, but, you know, so yeah, and I think I stated this before, I can't remember. Yes, I have, but maybe in not, say, any of the review videos, but I do know this, that this was stated, that me and my dad, aka Lil Blue, were one of those people that likes both Star Wars and Star Trek. We love both Star Wars and Star Trek. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with liking both. But of course, there are people that would only like Star Trek, and there would be people that only like Star Wars. But again, me and my dad, we like both. So yeah. Anyways, what else? Like, oh yeah, because again, like, when it comes to, like, oh, yeah, here's something else I forgot to mention. This was really cool, and when we come up to, like, say, Rod talking with Will Wheaton, like, you know, because I think some of us would know that, you know, how Wesley, like, the reception of Wesley, like, what people thought of the character Wesley Crusher in Next Generation, and at a convention, according to Will, Gene pretty much, like, stand up, and, like, he had enough with the fans, like, you know, you shut up, you know, I created Wesley, blah, 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 and, you know, basically, according to Will, like, Gene was basically standing up for Will. That was amazing, because, and there's nothing really wrong, I had no problem with Wesley, there's nothing wrong with Wesley. So, yeah, and, something else, what am I missing? Well, yeah, even, like, say, when Rod went to California, and the the Hollywood Boulevard and the star of Gene Rottenbury, the Hollywood Walk of Fame reception. You know, the Hollywood Walk of Fame that Rod's father Gene received, and footage of, you know, the whole ceremony. That was really cool. Yeah, and again, because, like, also, here's another thing. When the last appearance of Gene Rottenbury at a Star Wars convention, which was before he passed away, and according to Rod, like, he helped out, you know, his mom, Majel, like, helping Gene be there and being on the stage, you know, and again, that was Gene's last appearance at a Star Trek convention, you know, and the father of Star Trek, I should say, which, yeah, I forgot to mention, yeah, because it's true, Gene Rottenbury is the father of Star Trek. Yeah, and of course, when it comes up in the documentary, you know, very sad, you know, because when the passing of Gene Rottenbury, and also, yeah, because, well, when it came up to, like, say, mentioning about the Kelvin timeline films, well, most at the time, you know, just the first Star Trek film of, you know, from 2009, and Rod Rottenbury showing a clip from an interview of his father, Gene. He showed it to J.J. Abrams, where Gene Roddenberry predicted it, where Gene Roddenberry was asked of this, you know, that Gene Roddenberry would hope that, you know, a young and fresh guy would, like, helm a new Star Trek movie, and I think, yeah, even, like, Gene, to put it this, like, Gene said that, you know, would like to see, like, the origin, like, there'll be a movie of an origin story of Captain Kirk and Spock, you know, joining Starfleet, I guess how they met, and yeah, Gene Roddenberry just predicted it for sure. He did, and thus, you know, that's what we got in the 2009 Star Trek film, and I remember this because, well, according to, you know, Abrams, Kurtzman, and Ortsy in, like, the commentary, and I even read this on the IMDb page of the 2009 Star Trek film, that, you know, Majel Barrett stated to them that she felt that her late husband, Gene, would have loved this Star Trek movie, and, you know, this was, like, would have thought this was the best Star Trek film, and apparently there was a standing ovation, and they just clapped and applauded for Majel. Yeah, so, and and JJ again appearing in this, and Rod interviewing JJ Abrams. That was cool. But yeah, with all that being said, and to wrap things up, Trek Nation is a good Star Trek documentary for sure. It's one of my favorites. I think it would have to be, it's a tie between this and The Captains, which of course I had reviewed as well earlier this month. Those are probably my two favorite Star Trek documentaries. And you guys let me know what you think, what you thought of, if you've seen this documentary, what you thought of it, and what you thought of my review. And, you know, leave a comment and give this review a like as always. A 10 out of 10 for Trek Nation for sure. Hands down, 10 out of 10. Yep. So that's my review of Trek Nation. And guys, the Star Trek review marathon has come to a close. This being officially the last one. You know, because of course, the Star Trek movies that I've been reviewing on the weekdays, well, you know, that came to an end. And now, because reviewing Star Trek material on the weekends, that's come to an end too. And this being officially the last one. Again, as I said before in my review of Beyond, it's been a lot of fun doing this review marathon. I'm impressed and I'm happy how this turned out. I think, you know, this review marathon, excuse me, it succeeded, and, you know, of how I intended it for it to be, like, you know, for 3 weeks of reviewing Star Trek's material, movies, and on the weekends reviewing documentaries. This was a lot of fun, and until I review something else Star Trek, that's that. So, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Again, 10 out of 10 for Trek Nation, and for Trek Nation being the last and final piece of Star Trek material to be reviewed. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Trek Nation, and hope you enjoyed the Star Trek review marathon. More reviews coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward. And until the next review marathon, I'll see you guys in the next video/review. Take care, peace out, and for one last time, live long and prosper.